Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Annassa. So happy to be here with you this morning. So, I'm going to share with you a rather esoteric meditation that is one that I've been practicing to align myself with the stars and the planets for some months now. And I think it's worthwhile if you're interested in doing that. So I'm just going to share it for those of you who are interested. And it will be up on the website, so you don't have to worry about trying to write it down because it's a little bit complicated. And it takes some understanding of Vedic astrology for it to really make sense. But I'm still going to talk about it in its entirety as I teach you the experience of it, so that if you really want to learn it, you can. So, and the value of it is that you can begin to align yourself with the planets and the luminaries, the sun and the moon, and the shadow planets, Rahu and Ketu, which are the eclipse points. You can begin to align your own spiritual mechanism with these powers that have a lot of influence over us and how we behave, whether we know it or not. So take your attention inside, and we'll start with the ground of our being, which is actually Rahu, the northern eclipse point. Rahu is spelled R-A-H-U. And it's a point in space and time that is continuously moving. And it's where, if there were to be an eclipse today, it's where it would happen. So Rahu is the ground that we walk on. And Ketu, its opposite point, the south node of the moon, is the moksha point or enlightenment, which is at the top of our halo. So we can visualize those 2 points, and then we'll begin to fill everything else in between. So feel into the connection with our physical biome, which is the energetic bubble that we live in, where that meets the ground, where that intersects with the ground, is Rahu. So feel into that place. And don't worry about where it is in the sky. That's not important at this moment. Feel into that space and just know that it's aligned with a point in the sky. And gently bring your attention to the tip of the tailbone. And the energies that reside here are congruent with Saturn. Saturn in the Vedic sky is the furthest planet from the Earth. And if you know the Vedic chart system, Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius. So we move slightly up to the sex chakra. And this chakra is inhabited partially by Venus. By Mars, which is exalted in Capricorn. Sorry for that, Mars. Is in the sex chakra. Then we move slightly higher. And Jupiter appears. Venus is exalted in Jupiter, in Pisces, ruled by Jupiter. So that appears just above. And Jupiter is about expansion. So Venus and Jupiter are intermingled. Then we move just below the belly button. And again, Mars appears. And the exalted sign, the exalted planet in Mars is Sun. So just below the belly button, we see the sun, completely yellow. Then we move to the heart center, which is Venus. And in Libra, ruled by Venus, is Saturn exalted. Saturn is what holds Venus to the ground of our being. So that we don't just float off in love, but we hold it in ourselves and among and between us on this plane. And then gently our attention rises to the throat center. And this is Mercury. Mercury is the speech and communication center. And Mercury is exalted in its own sign, Virgo. So this is pure Mercury in the throat center. And then we take our attention to the third eye, which is the moon. The moon rules Cancer. And then the top of our head with this beautiful flower with 1,000 petals opening to the sun. The sun rules Leo. And then to the top of our aura, where our fingers would touch if we made a halo around our head. This is Ketu, the south node of the moon. So feel your energy rising up your central channel. And then it's almost as if it sprays out the top of your head and then goes in 360 degrees around your entire body, coming up again through the earth. And we'll speak each of the centers and their corresponding placements in the sky one more time. So where the earth intersects with our human biome is Rahu, the ground that we walk on. The tip of our tailbone is Saturn. Our sex center is Mars. Then we have Jupiter, the planet of abundance and spiritual growth, along with Venus, the planet of love. Sun, just below our belly button. Jupiter, filling our Buddha belly. Venus, opening our hearts. Mercury, informing our speech with wisdom. Moon, beaming into our third eye. Sun, receiving itself into the open flower at the top of our head. Ketu, the south node of the moon, signifying enlightenment. allow yourself to bask for a few moments in these planetary energies. As you're ready, bring yourselves back to this plane of awareness. And we'll take your questions. We're so delighted to be with you this morning. So we know this was a little bit confusing because the planetary energies are interwoven throughout our being. So some of what we talked about involves repetition of different planetary energies. And it takes some knowledge and awareness to understand how they interact. But we thought it might be a starting place because, as we have said many times, just because we don't know about planetary influences doesn't mean they don't affect us. And so even a rudimentary knowledge can begin to allow us to experience our connection to at least our own solar system and widen our perceptive capacity to at least our solar system, so that we're not limited to our own bubble of internal and external experience. And begin to expand our awareness to what's really influencing us. And it's interesting that in previous cultures, when technology was not such a foundation, and we're not against technology, not the slightest bit. But when there was time and energy to pay attention to the internal workings of our energetic mechanism and its connection to the field of our being, then these complex understandings of energetic interplay were articulated by cultures thousands of years ago. And so what hasn't changed is the power of these connections over us. But what has changed is our awareness of our integration with these powers. And so because we have a lack of awareness, we are left a bit powerless in our ability to understand the forces that are influencing our interpretation of our experience. Which doesn't mean that we think all of you should learn everything about astrology. But it is helpful to know enough about your own astrology to begin to participate in what appear to be the strengths and challenges from your own astrology, because it's a way of gathering information. Now, last week we promised we weren't going to say anything about astrology, and then here we are. So, what does Rebecca know about what's coming? Not much. So, we welcome your questions and are happy to participate. That being said, we're going to limit our answers to what we truly know.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Drew. How nice to see you.
Thank you.
You look very well this morning.
Thank you. The question came up in my mind. You spoke about the influence that we may or may not be aware of the planetary influences on us. And my question then is, what influences do the guides have on us? We've said that angels come to us and will kind of break that barrier in emergency situations but they also have some influence upon us. And can you speak to that influence maybe in the same way that the planets have influence upon us?
Well, the influence that angelic beings have on us has much more to do with our awareness and our cultivation of interest than any particular will on the part of angelic beings. That being said, angelic beings are acting on behalf of the whole at all times. Our individual interaction with angelic beings has everything to do with our willingness to participate. And most people in the beginning are limited by fear. Anything that they have not experienced in their past as a part of their matrix of belief is often discounted or sent away through misunderstanding. And so cultivating relationship with angelic beings is possible, and we would say desirable, because angelic beings offer to us experience beyond our daily being. Now, we will tell you quite frankly that Rebecca was very distrustful when we appeared in her field of awareness. But she did interact, which allowed us to interact with her matrix of belief until there was a level of comfort that allowed us in. And we'll tell you that we appreciated that dialogue very, very much, because there was a willingness for exchange of information and energies while while there was a level of understanding that was building. So our availability to you is in relationship. And so it's not a passive relationship. This is what we're trying to say. It's not passive, it's active. And your willingness to engage is what provides the opening for us to be able to engage back. And so this isn't really about faith, but about willingness to open. And so the only place of faith is that you use it to cultivate this willingness to open. And the other part of the equation is that you hold the highest best for yourself and everyone else as you create this opening. And in that awareness, it's impossible for anything else except the highest best to inform you, because that is what you're truly interested in. And if you feel yourself not interested in the highest best, then it's a good time to not be trying to connect to angelic beings. Because the truth of it is that what you sow is what you reap. And so when you bring the highest best, you get the highest best. And so a lot of what we're doing is discovering what that feels like in ourselves. And the word we can use again is love, peace, joy, and gratitude. All four of those words are appropriate feelings to bring into the environment of cultivating that which is beyond, which is what we are cultivating. And so everything that we talk to you about is about how to cultivate that. And so, yes, angelic beings are wonderful. Angelic beings are a portal to the all of the all that is, to the experience of that which is beyond. And so the point is not exactly contact with angelic beings, but contact with that which is beyond. But it helps to have support in the navigation of the vastness of the all that is. And that's why we're here speaking to you. We are offering that support. And as each of us becomes more and more aligned with our own blueprint in the expression of ultimate reality, then all of this becomes very, very relevant. And so we're here to guide you to that. Having connection to angelic presence is not the same as enlightenment. Enlightenment is not an arrival point. There is always more. So we hesitate to even use that word because there is always more. For example, our solar system is just one of a vast number in the multiverse. The center of our solar system revolves around a galactic center. Now, of course, there's more than one galaxy. And so the vastness of the multiverse is beyond our mental capacity to begin to imagine. But when we can take ourselves step by step to at least envision what is interacting with us, then we can see that we really are specks in the multiverse, which doesn't mean that our lives are devoid of meaning. Every person here understands that there is meaning in being human. There is value in expanding our understanding. And there is a vast multiverse available for internal exploration, should we choose to participate in that journey. And everyone involved in this conversation is participating in that journey, or you wouldn't be here. And there is a reason that all of us are a certain age, because this journey becomes really, really, the rubber hits the road as we begin to face our own death. Because we know, everybody on this call knows, that our life is finite. And we have come to appreciate the fact that we're facing that finite limitation. And we're all looking for a way to do that with peace and equanimity. And we're here to tell you that that's available. And that is the true way to die. That the most beautiful death occurs when we expand out the top of our head, embracing the whole with our life force. Yes, into the unknown, but we know that that unknown is the field of being that is just beyond love, peace, joy, and gratitude. And that is beyond our perceptual language, but not our field of perception. Just because we have language for something does not mean that that's the limitation of our experience. It's the limitation of our language. And the limitation of our experience is very different from the limitation of our language. So our experience beyond language is what we are truly cultivating here, because third dimensional language does not allow for that which is beyond. Except in pointing, there are no words for that which is beyond, because it is beyond our language. It is not beyond our feeling capacity. Our feeling capacity is infinite. And this is the junction between infinity and humanity, is our feeling capacity. And we're not exactly talking about happy, sad, glad, mad. It's beyond this. It's beyond emotion. It's beyond mind. And yet it is feeling into that which is beyond. And this is what we are truly cultivating. And this is what we are determined to share with you. And this is what we mean, this is what we're talking about when we speak the word transmission. How may we serve further? Did we answer your question, Drew? Okay. We're sensing a stunned silence. How can we help? So we will tell you this. When the moment of your death arrives, think of us. That's all you need to do. It helps if you cultivate your relationship with us in the Annassa temple by bringing any difficulties that you have with anyone in this plane, any challenges in your life, you can come to us and ask for guidance. And in cultivating that relationship in the Annassa temple, and the only rule in the Annassa temple is that you try to bring your highest. And we say try because we understand that coming to your highest best, the understanding of what that is, takes practice. We don't know what that is when we first start, and that's okay. So, some of us do, most of us don't. So that's okay. We start where we are. We don't start where we think we're supposed to be. We start where we are. And, very often when people come to spiritual practice, they come out of a sense of desperation. That's certainly how Rebecca started. It's like this feeling that there's got to be more. I'm missing something here. I don't really get it. Why am I here? What is this about? And so it's okay to start from there because that's where we are. And what comes to us over time is that there's nothing wrong with where we are. Where we are is where we are. It's what life has given us to this point. There is no judgment about it. There is only starting where you are and moving forward. And that's all there is to it. So you bring your despair to the Annassa temple and you say, I just don't get it. Please show me. Please show me something different from what I've been able to feel at this point. And see what happens. And having had a response to that, you begin to feel inside yourself and integrate the transmission received as a part of you. Because there is nothing in this universe that is separate, nothing in this multiverse that is separate from us. We are that creativity that creates everything. We are that in our essence. Every cell of our body is made from that. At the same time, every cell of our body is a manifestation of materials from the earth. We are of the earth and we are of the multiverse at the same time. And because we're of the earth and we're schooled on how to survive on earth immediately as we arrive, with a lot of misinformation, because our evolution and our devolution have happened at the same time. And so our true purpose and connection is connection to the deepest part of ourselves, which is the same as everything that exists in the multiverse. And when we come to understand our being as that in a lived through feeling awareness experience, then we are available to a different level of growth. So it's not that we exactly arrive, but one of the first things to make peace with is our fear. Because once we understand that the worst thing that can happen to us is death, and that that's going to happen anyway, then our mission becomes coming to an equanimity with that. And understand that no matter how long we've worked and how much equanimity we have experienced, in the primal experience of death, there always arises within us a grasping for life. This is an organic, physical, physiological manifestation that will happen to every single one of us. So, what's very, very important that we learn as part of our practice is to cultivate equanimity in the presence of fear. We'll say that again. Cultivate equanimity in the presence of fear. Because this fear will arise. And if we are used to facing our fear and saying, hello, fear, thank you for coming. Is my life in danger at this moment? And most of the time, we will answer no as we look around our environment. There will come a point where we answer yes. My life is in danger in this moment, and the fear will come in its completion. And we say, hello, fear, welcome. Please inform me. And as the fear is allowed to pass through us, we come into equanimity, expansion, and the joy of union with the all that is. If we understand that experience and cultivate our relationship with our fear to the point where the fear itself doesn't scare us, and we are in the moment of dying, we expect it, we know it, we are able to love it in that moment, then we just rise into whatever God has planned for us, whatever the goddess is holding as next for us. We embrace it in our totality. And yes, it will be tempered with fear because that's our nature as we go through this experience. But if we can meet the fear with acceptance and some kind of equanimity, it passes much faster. But we can appreciate that fear as part of the experience instead of dreading it, trying to push it away, trying to push it down, trying to be anything but that. We can just, okay, fear, hello. What's next? We hope that answers some questions you didn't know to ask yet. but we're playing for keeps here. We really want you to be able to rise above fear regularly and to begin to have a relationship with it. Fear is a living part of ourselves, every single one of us. And the better we know ourselves, the better prepared we are to meet every experience in our lives. And there is nothing that isn't welcome in our inner being to be understood. And it's all available to teach us. And from that perspective, everything is welcome. How may we serve further? Hmm. Brenda, you guys are awfully quiet this morning. Andrew?
Can you talk about the living in love with people who have broken contractual relationships? In other words,
So the question is, how do we live in love with people who have broken contractual relationships? Well, there are several different perspectives. You know, if someone has broken a contractual relationship with you, well, when someone breaks a contractual relationship with you, it means that whatever you were serving in that relationship, they have finished. They have finished. Doesn't mean you have finished. It means they have finished. And so in that setting, we would recommend that you go to the Annassa temple and ask to be informed what this means for you. And when someone breaks a connection, which is what that is, the first thing we do is get quiet. Usually we want to fight that break in connection. Like, wait, this really hurts. Why are you doing this? This is our initial response to someone breaking a connection. So having gone through that reaction and met whatever we've met, usually we interact in 3D reality, then we just get quiet. And if it's clear that the connection is going to break, no matter our input, then we allow.
maybe a phrase I hear that, maybe I feel that in some cases they have broken the contractual relationship with themselves. In other words, they have created their own hell.
Well, this is a completely different thing. And this you cannot address directly. Because in a person who has created their own hell, they're committed to that belief. When they've broken the contract with themselves, they have created that. So the only way to be helpful in that situation is to go to the Annassa temple and speak to their highest self. There is nothing that you can do in this plane that will directly heal that, because the person has shut down something in themselves. They have cut a connection in themselves that only they can reestablish.
How about in terms of planetary influence? Sometimes I feel it's actually not just their choice.
Then this becomes one of the challenges that it helps if they are willing to become aware of. The only way to address astrological challenges is to know that they exist. And then there are what are called remedies, which are often gemstones. And when you know that there is a particular challenge in your chart, then your awareness can function a bit differently. So we'll give you an example. We'll use Rebecca, who has a very challenged moon in her chart. And so, since moon is the center of happiness and contentment, most of her life she spent blaming the lack of happiness and contentment on other people. First of all, her parents, especially. And when one comes to understand that that lack of peace and contentment was not an intentional or even unintentional result of bad parenting, there may or may not have been some of that, but that it was actually an astrological condition of her arrival, then there's a bit of a different, it no longer becomes a blame, shame, past-based experience, but a present condition to be accepted as a challenge to live beyond. So happiness and contentment is not a given in her astrology. But it turns out that happiness and contentment doesn't just come from the moon. Of course, there's overlap. And as we showed in the overlap of the planets in our energetic being, there is overlap of function, so that one area that might be challenging for happiness and contentment, well, there's the planet Venus that in Rebecca's chart is quite powerful. So the availability of love and the peace that comes from that experience can come in a different way and balance that sort of underlying feeling of discontent and disharmony with something else. So understanding that means that all is forgiven from the parents. That wasn't really the point. The point was rising above having an afflicted moon. Learning that is part of the recipe that she was born into, and that's okay. There's a way around. There's always a workaround somehow as you become more and more self-aware and more allowing of the pain of your existence to inform you that this is a challenge, not a sentence. And so love is available to all of us. Love, peace, joy, and gratitude, and that which is beyond. The price is for us to allow ourselves to stop suffering. Pain is inevitable. How we experience that pain, if we turn it into suffering, then we are living through a sentence that we have imposed on ourselves by taking our pain as a sentence rather than a challenge. We hope this makes sense to you, and we welcome your questions.
This is Joan.
Hello, Joan.
Yes, I'm really appreciating the discussion this morning. When there's mental illness in a family, how does that fit what you're talking about?
Well, we would say there's mental illness in every human being. When it is so pronounced that it makes functioning very difficult, we think that's what you're asking us about. But every
Yes.
human being has mental illness. This is not, it's part of the being human. And when we accept that in ourselves, then that's our first stage of growth, that we have embraced suffering where we could be embracing pain. So, but this is a little different question. So when someone has mental illness to the point where their function is difficult,
Yes.
this is a very good place to go to the Annassa temple, because from your life experience of engaging this person in the dimension of their illness, that there is nothing good happens when you try to engage that energy directly. So understanding that, you sit with that person's energy and you evolve within yourself what you would like to say to that person, what you would like to say to their highest self. And you go to the Annassa temple and you say it to their highest self. And then you allow that experience to just be there for them. And you don't tend to it in any way. You just completely allow that to be, and you see what happens. And then you repeatedly go to the temple and engage with the feedback you get from your beginning engagement, and the relationship begins to evolve in that way. And then at some point, there will be a third dimensional interaction, but it may be years from now. And so you have to be in allowing for the power of your intervention in the unseen to take whatever time it takes. Because what you are engaging the power of love in engaging the highest best for them, from the highest best from you. And this is the only thing you can do that has power. You have understood from repeatedly trying to intervene in third dimensional reality that that has no currency for this person. It doesn't help. In some ways, it just tamps down the illness that has these pathways completely blocked. And so the only way in is through the unseen. And this is another way of saying the power of prayer. Because when one goes to the Annassa temple, to sacred space, on behalf of another, and speaks to their highest best from the person's highest best, when that highest best meets, that is prayer. That's our definition of prayer. And so there is no sacred space or sacred understanding that does not have this concept. And so this is what that means. You take that energy, you offer your understanding of the highest best into this field of awareness for this person. And you leave it. It's out of your hands. You have put it in the hands of the goddess. And this is the highest we can do for anyone. And this is what allowing, the concept of surrender, we like the more feminine concept of allowing, because allowing has an expansive quality to it. It has an interactive quality to it. It has a living quality to it. Whereas the word surrender has, a warlike, death-like solidity to it that we don't really appreciate as the ground of this kind of interaction. So we go to sacred space and we pray for the highest. This is really what we're doing. And so when we tell you to think carefully about what you want to say, we are inviting you to make a sacred prayer, a sacred offering on behalf of this person. And this is how we interact. And learning to do this, and then having done it, you can feel a sense of having done what's possible for this person. So you are no longer held in this heaviness of powerlessness in yourself, which that heaviness itself is part of the solidity of the illness of the other person. Your sense of despair contributes to their sense of powerlessness in meeting their illness. So in you relieving yourself of this responsibility, which you can't fulfill from this dimension anyway, when you go to a higher dimension and offer into sacred space your highest to their highest, you are lifting up the whole by relieving yourself of the responsibility of solving this problem for them, which cannot be done from third dimensional perspective. You have proved that to yourself over and over. And so you can have a sense of relief. I have contributed what it is that I have to offer, which is the highest in sacred space. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're so
Yes.
welcome. And we welcome your feedback as you begin to participate in this way.
Okay.
How may we serve further?
The previous conversation about fear brought up a wave of emotions for me, and the wave has passed, but I'm left with a headache that feels like unprocessed energy. Is the Annassa temple the place to process, or Ho'oponopono? Very grateful for your guidance.
So, so the way we experience this is that the wave of fear, we will use the word somatization. When fear becomes a palpable experience in our physical being. So we would encourage you, if you're willing in this moment, to say hello, fear, to that headache. You are completely welcome. And you understand that this fear has become a palpable physical experience for you because it wants your attention. So you ask the fear, what do you need? And you see if you get a response. So what that fear wants is to know that death is not on the horizon. And what if we don't know if this is a possibility or not, but what if death is on the horizon? Then you feel into yourself. What it means to meet death. All of us are facing this experience, whether it's in this moment or in a moment that's very far off. All of us are facing this experience. Now you know that that headache is not death itself. That headache is the fear. So you say, thank you, fear, for informing me that this is part of my work in this moment, no matter how close or how far death is. And you go to the Annassa temple And you say, how do I face death? How do I face fear? How do I live through this experience when this experience ultimately will be the end of everything known? And you go to the temple and allow this to be felt. And then please come and tell us at some point in the future your experience of this, because it will help everyone on this call to know what your lived through experience of going to the Annassa temple and allowing yourself to be informed through this experience, where that takes you. We hope that answers your question. How may we serve further?
You'd mentioned before about death and transition, that it is, that we are being celebrated and awaited as greatly on the other side as here, as newborns are waited here. Can you speak to that more again?
Well,
The beauty in it that our culture doesn't recognize.
all we can say to that is that it's the truth. But saying more than that is beyond the capacity of human language to express what happens. And what happens after that is different according to what our experience in this life has been. That being said, the concept of heaven and hell, and that we can forget about that. That's not relevant. It's not that. And at the same time, there is a blueprint and a redesigning of blueprint. We can say that. And understand that the blueprint is not, it's not a flat piece of paper that has our life on it. It's an interactive agreement. Yes.
There are times when I pray for death. No fear of it, just a longing to go home.
This is beautiful. This is wonderful. And this is the truth of human experience. we would say in this circumstance, we don't have anything to say about it. It's all fine. Is there a question in there?
It's just a comment.
So we're coming into time for meditation. And we think we're just going to be quiet and invite you to meditate on the Om sound. Our earlier meditation was a bit of a mental gymnastics. And so we want to have the opportunity for you to just be in the Om sound and receive our transmission as we close today, so that we don't have that mental gymnastics and just allow an experience of the all that is. So we will offer that to you in complete gratitude and wonder with the beauty of our conversation today. Thank you so much. We are so honored to participate with you. So take your attention inside and say the Om sound to yourself in whatever way pleases you as we begin our transmission. And you may keep your eyes open in communication with us or closed. There is no difference. In our experience of you. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful for this experience with you. Till Wednesday or Sunday, whenever we meet again, so much love. Bye for now.